Welcome to Infinite Novel. Dive into epic alternate realities. All rights to original creators.
Chapter 96 CH 96. A new training ground ready to go. Ren, still wrapped in noticeable bandages and somewhat injured, asked Hinata and Ino as they entered the training ground 41. Hinata did a great job healing him, but he deliberately had her not finish the job because he wanted the paid leave. And for that, he needed to show up to Konoha's hospital with an injury that would justify it. It sucked. During the whole meeting with the Hokage 2 days ago, Ren was grumpily complaining in his head due to the pain that racked his body while outwardly he used chakra to make his state unnoticeable to the old coots. Insulting Danzo was almost therapeutic for him back then. It made the pain way more bearable. I still don't get why we needed to trek all the way here from the village. Couldn't we just go from your living room? Ino huffily complained with her arms crossed under her chest as she sullenly walked next to him with a childish pout. When he told her he was prescribed bed rest for a week in the hospital, she was elated. She even excitedly pulled out her nightgown from her storage seal, already prepared for a sleepover, as Ren watched her with a dry look. But then Hinata cockblocked her with no sex rule and Ino was throwing a tantrum ever since then. Sage, bless his sweet Hyuga girl. Walking was a problem for Ren right now. He wasn't exactly in the shape for handling Ino in bed currently. Sighing, Ren put his hand on Ino's head and ruffled her hair, much to her annoyance as she quickly ducked away with a loud, "Hey, people saw us leaving for the training ground." Ren rolled his eyes. It leaves tracks. This way, nobody will question where we are. Nobody would question where we are even if we stayed in your house, though. Hinata idly interjected with a casual hum. You are supposed to be on a bed rest, not walking around the village. This is more suspicious, actually. She called out Ren's bullshit with a small amused smirk, almost causing Ren to stumble because he was caught off guard. After a brief moment of awkward silence, where he ignored Ino's pointed stare, Ren finally shrugged. I was just bored. Hinata giggled, and even Ino chuckled at that. They could sympathize. Ren didn't tell them not to go train. They didn't really need him with them there. But they still stayed with him for the most part these 2 days, opting to take a small break from their usual training schedule. But that left them a bit bored, too. Ren focused on his fuinjutsu, Hinata on medical texts. Even Ino had a book from her clan about the human mind. After 2 days spent like that, they all needed to just get out of the house. It was one of the downsides of having chakra, Ren found out. In his previous life, he could spend months holed up in his room, reading books. But now, he had a hard time staying still for a week. The strong yang component of his chakra was making him feel as if he was on a constant low-level sugar rush. Anyway, come here, Ren said and invitingly spread his arms. Already knowing what came next, Hinata and Ino quickly walked toward him and glomped at him from both sides, their arms snaking around his waist. A smile appeared on Ren's face as he put his arms around their shoulders, gently pulling them deeper into their embrace while he started channeling his chakra into the transportation seal. You should really improve your teleportation seal, Hinata said with a scrunched expression, her chin resting on top of Ren's shoulder. 20 seconds of activation time is, how do I say it politely? She mumbled the last part to herself, but considering her mouth was very close to Ren's ear, he heard her clearly. His smile turned into a sheepish one. It wasn't so easy. Maybe if he got a peek at the Flying Thunder God seal, he could improve his work, but he doubted that was going to happen anytime soon. The more he dabbled in it and tried things out, the more he suspected his way of teleporting was using a different method from the way the second Hokage did it. Minato had it easy. He was given the Flying Thunder God technique, already finished and working. He only had to learn it. Ren, however, had to create his own way of teleporting from scratch. It was, a work in progress, still. Fucking Obito, getting a very versatile spacetime ninjutsu for free just because Kakashi reached Ren's heart. The damn simp. Please, don't change it. Ino, nuzzling her cheek into Ren's upper arm, whined. I enjoy these few seconds a lot. It's the best part about this technique. Of course, you do. Hinata snorted before Ren could reply. It gives you the time to drool on him. That stopped Ino in her tracks, and she exasperatedly sighed. One time. It happened one time, bitch. And we shall never forget it, bimbo. Hinata helpfully reminded her with a fond smile, making Ino groan as she buried her face back into Ren's arm. Shaking his head in mirth, Ren felt the seal ready for transportation and, the surroundings around them abruptly changed. No longer did they stand in the middle of the forest surrounding Konoha. Now, they were in a big, grassy clearing encircled by trees, with towering snowy mountain peaks visible in the distance behind them. On the right side was a homely log house Ren had his clones construct over the past few months since he had found this place, and around 50 meters behind said log house started a sandy beach with a crystal clear sea. Ino absolutely loved that part. She spent a considerable time playing in the water, usually dragging the reluctant Hinata along with her after their training sessions. Sadly for them, only Ren could teleport them to this place for now. He was working on a way for the girls to access it on their own, and hopefully, it would be ready for their academy graduation. It would be a nice present. Ever since Ino pulled off her wind dragon on Ren's ass, he was looking for a place where they could train, using techniques like that, without being noticed by anybody. Their usual training ground was a tad bit too close to Konoha for his liking. This place was in the middle of literally nowhere. No important outpost, city, trade route, road, or anything like that was nearby. No human settlement could be found within a 50-kilometer radius. It was behind a big mountain range in the southernmost parts of the Land of Fire, with massive forests full of dangerous animals and even chakra beasts. Nobody lived anywhere nearby. Nobody had any business coming to this part of the country. There was nothing of value over here. It was a perfect place for a secret base or a ninja training ground. And Ren was happy that one of his shadow clones had pulled Zoro, gotten lost while exploring, and found this place. Bless his directionally challenged self. Ren led the girls toward a wooden table in front of the log house, and they sat down. Hinata was next to Ren, while Ino clicked her tongue as she sat opposite them. I can't wait to live here. Ino wistfully sighed while looking at the beautiful and calm waves and the sea washing over the beach, as a dreamy smile stretched on her face. Hinata chuckled with a small nod before she leaned her body on Ren, resting her head on his shoulder. Ren, however, only rolled his eyes at their antics. They had it all figured out already. His opinion was apparently not a big factor either. After their graduation, they both intended to move in with him. They wouldn't have as much time to spend with each other after their graduation because of their new duties and teams, and the girls refused to accept it. So, this was their solution. Ren remembered that discussion as if it were today. Hinata proposed to rent a bigger flat and offered to pay for it herself. Ino refused that and offered to split the rent. After all, the two would be full-fledged ninjas by then and therefore earn their own money. They were already discussing specifics before Ren's mind even registered that his house was volunteered for such a thing without his consent. To give the girls credit, Ren knew they would accept it if he said no. They would grumble, or whine in Ino's case, a bit, but despite getting ahead of themselves, they knew where the line was. But he didn't exactly have anything against them living with him. They were already in his house more often than not anyway. It would be easier for him to count the nights where he didn't have one of them sleeping over. They had their own baskets for laundry. They had their own toothbrushes. Their creams, perfumes, and whatnot else the women used were already lined on the top of his bathroom table. Hinata has basically privatized his kitchen by now, just as Ino did with a large part of his wardrobe space. Yeah, he was already in the deep end. He had already lost this fight. And it's not as if they had to share his medium-sized apartment. Ren had a house in the capital, and now, he also had this log cabin that sported his newest experiment, the space-expanding seals. Ha! Suck it, Harry Potter. He could do it, too. Well, okay. Alright. He can admit it. They imploded several times over the past 3 weeks, killing his clones. But the last implosion was a week ago, before he even went on his most recent C-rank mission. He was always improving their stability, and there was no accident for an entire week. By the time the girls graduated, he would have the seals ready and safe for use. Databia. Hopefully. Ren was suddenly pulled from his momentary reverie as he felt Ino's foot softly land on his inner thigh, slowly dragging itself higher and higher. He gave Ino an exasperated look, but she returned it with an innocent expression and a small grin. Her grin only widened when her toes touched something hard in Ren's pants, but her fun was interrupted when both Ren and Hinata's hands caught her ankle, momentarily startled when their hands met, but they quickly overcame that surprise and then they, at the same time, pulled Ino's foot a bit away from Ren's crotch. Hinata coughed, narrowing her eyes at the blonde girl into an unamused stare. No sex for 2 more days. Oh, come on. He does not even need to move. I'll do everything myself. Ino indignantly protested, and Ren let out a small, frustrated groan. It was bad enough that he had just cock-blocked himself, but now they need to discuss it in front of him, too? Girls, at attention, he flatly said, and both Ino and Hinata suddenly tensed. Their backs became ramrod straight as they quieted down and waited. There was that bit of discipline that came from going to a military school. I actually have something important to talk about with you before I start teaching Hinata a new jutsu, and Ino will go to the capital with my clone to practice her techniques on Samui. Both girls blinked in surprise. It had been quite a while since Ren taught any of them a new technique. He mostly just gave them an idea, a direction, and then he let them explore the options and experiment themselves. For a second, Ino looked jealous as she glanced at Hinata, and Ren noticed, but she quickly schooled her expression into a pout while Hinata showed a delighted smile. Huffing, Ren ran a bit of lightning chakra straight into his hand that held Ino's leg. He channeled it into said leg and also into Hinata's hand that was partially touching his. The chakra quickly stimulated their nerve endings with a pleasurable jolt and caused the girls to let out a short moan out loud with a visible shudder as both Ren and Hinata let go of Ino's ankle. Hinata quickly covered her mouth with her free hand, showing a mortified, wide-eyed expression while Ino, rubbing her thighs, sensually licked her lips with a wide smile. I knew it. I am not the only one sexually frustrated here. She cackled and gave Hinata a winning, smug look. Hinata, with red cheeks from embarrassment, averted her eyes away from Ino's pointed stare and decided to try changing the topic. What did you want to talk about? But there was still a small quiver in her voice. Ren's amusement quickly faded. He knew that if he let them, they would fool around the whole day. So, giving the girls a serious look, he spoke. You are both scratching the surface of Jonin-level combat prowess. So, I think it is high time to talk to you about what it means to be an S-rank ninja and how they differ from your normal, run-of-the-mill Jonin. Chapter 97, CH 97. What it means to be an S rank. What do you think is the difference between an S rank ninja and a jonin? Ren asked the girls, and Hinata gained a pondering look while Ino opened her mouth to reply without thinking, but then her brain started to process the situation, and she stopped herself with a frown. The girls looked at each other with a bit of helpless confusion on their faces, drawing blanks at how to answer the question. They knew Ren didn't want an obvious answer like one is more dangerous than the other. Ren, on the other hand, just contently watched the girls fidget and exchange gazes as they communicated non-verbally with their eyes and expressions. It was quite amusing seeing them panic. One has a bigger dick than the other. Eventually, Ino replied with an eye roll when she got annoyed that she could not come up with a good answer. Seriously, do you need to ask such a stupid question? She grumpily huffed. Humor me, please. Ren dryly said with a deadpan look that made Ino cringe as she ducked her head with a mullish look. Ren snorted. Presenting topics and ideas students would never think of by themselves was a teacher's job. But when neither girl interrupted the silence even after 3 minutes, Ren sighed. But he could understand their troubles. As academy students, they didn't have any opportunity to ever see an S-rank ninja, or even a jonin, in a proper action. Funnily enough, the people who watched the anime were more informed than his girls when it came to this, despite not even being from this world. Fine, let me just give you a lecture. You are not cute at all, he said in resignation with a visible pout, suddenly feeling a burst of sympathy for his high school teachers who constantly asked questions and never got any answers volunteered back. Ignoring Ino's indignant "I am plenty cute," Ren gathered his thoughts and started to talk. 5 jonin, he said before pausing for dramatic purposes and to make sure the girls properly pay attention. That's the standard response team for hunting down a spotted S-rank ninja. The village sends 5 jonin who counter his skill set. Isn't that a bit low? Hinata wondered out loud. That didn't match the unbeatable standard the stories about these monsters usually set. Wait, you have beaten 10 jonin in your last mission. Does that mean you are an S-rank ninja? She looked at Ren with unveiled wonder in her wide eyes, causing Ren's heart to skip a beat. With a grin involuntarily appearing on his face, Ren put his hand on Hinata's head, enjoying her expression. No, I am still lacking in many aspects to call myself that, in my opinion. But I can see why you would come to that conclusion. Which is why, after every feat worthy of S-rank classification, I made damn sure to show to the village that I don't deserve it with the injuries on my body. Is that why you made me botch your healing? Hinata realized, and her expression darkened. Feeling a bit awkward, Ren quickly retracted his hand from her head and subtly shuffled a few inches away from her. Yes. Having somebody who fought Yagura, resulting in the man's death, show up happy and smiling, cool as a cucumber, in the village and having that person show up barely able to stand presents 2 very different pictures. Ren seriously said. It's the same with my last mission. The first one would be a competent S-rank ninja, no questions asked. The other one, though? It could be just a jonin level competent who was very, very lucky. Even if Ren appeared just peachy during his last meeting with the Hokage, the second Sarutobi decided to investigate him, the first thing he would get on his table would be the report from the hospital where Ren went right after the meeting. And in there, he would find out that Ren was basically dead on his feet and was just trying to present a strong front. That would paint a picture of him in Sarutobi's mind. On the upside, Ren trying to appear strong in front of him would most likely make Sarutobi dismiss the possibility that his injured state was just a ploy to downplay his abilities. Maybe. Hopefully. If the old man even considered that angle. Sage, sometimes Ren felt so tired trying to find and craft schemes within schemes that had subtle hidden truths within hidden truths. He was pretty much out of his depth more often than not. He was never some sort of mastermind. He did his best, and that basically meant doing what came to his mind and covering it in so many layers that by the end of it, even he had no idea if he actually achieved something with it. But that does not matter right now. Ren tried to change the topic with a shake of his head. You are at the level where you could fight many of Konoha's weaker jonin. He praised the girls, and they perked up. What you lack is experience, but that you will get with time. The reason I started talking about S-rank ninjas is that the next focus of your training will be getting you to that level. And for that, you need to understand what you are trying to accomplish here. Most ninjas have no idea what being an S-rank ninja means, so they don't even know how to start getting to that level. Seeing the girls intently listen with interest written in their faces made Ren inwardly melt from how adorable they looked. But outwardly, he kept his serious visage as he continued. I categorize S-rank ninjas into 2 categories I came up with. Specialists, most S-ranks are counted as such, and all-rounders, who are very, very rare because it is genuinely hard to reach S-rank threat level by simply being generally good at ninjaing. The Hokage is an all-rounder, no, Ino excitedly asked, remembering that everybody called the Hokage professor because of how good he was at everything ninja-related. Ren gave her a small smile and a nod of acknowledgement. Yes, he does not have anything exceptionally special, but he is just that good at all things ninjutsu, to the level, it became his signature. What about monkeys and staff arts? Hinata curiously asked, but Ren just shrugged. Yes, he is known as the shit-flinger. Everybody knows that. Hell, in IWA and Kumo, some also call him the monkey with erect wood. He exaggeratedly rolled his eyes with a small smile as the girls laughed. But we could argue about the specifics until we die of old age. It does not matter. The categories are just to make these things simpler to understand for you. They are not completely precise. Ren explained, and when he saw that the girls understood, he moved on. And examples for specialists are countless. the first and fourth Hokage, every single Kazekage and Reikage, the second and fourth Mizukage, the second and third Tsuchikage, Itaki, Diadara, Haiden, Kakuzu, Tsunade, Kisame Hashigaki, Orochimaru. Ren suddenly stopped himself on that name, and his lips twitched in irritation. Well, Orochimaru and Jiraiya are hard to classify. Strictly speaking, they are specialists because they have their specialties they excel at. They are known for them and prefer to use them in combat. But they also try to imitate Sarutobi and know a lot more about other ninja fields than your usual S-rank ninjas, who mostly focus on their own talents. He was getting off topic and started to ramble. He could see that he was slightly losing Ino's attention. Shaking his head, Ren wryly smiled. Anyway, he spoke loudly as he gave Ino a nudge to her calf with his foot, causing her to flinch back to focus, and her expression turned sheepish. But Ren didn't dwell on it. People imagine S-rank ninjas to be some sort of monsters who are better at everything ninja-related than your normal jonin. That is total bullshit. There are exceptions, but most of them are just jonin who have some ability that is so dangerous that normal jonin have a hard time dealing with them, which makes them an S-class threat. For example, Itaki. He is known in Konoha as some sort of boogeyman and is feared because of his mastery of Sharingan Genjutsu, S-rank criminal at 13. Ren dryly said. He still didn't believe that Itaki dealt with the clan by himself. Obito most likely killed the actually strong ninjas himself. Because no matter how good, no matter that he had his Mangekyo, a 13-year-old boy would not have enough chakra to kill several dozen jonin, over 100 shinin, and who knows how many genin the late Uchiha clan had. All in the span of an evening? Alone? With nobody noticing a thing? With nobody putting up any sort of resistance? Within the premises of a ninja village? Yeah, and pigs could fly. No, Oniki didn't count. No matter how pink and small he was. Keep this to yourselves. Not many know it. But Itaki is terminally ill and near blind due to overusing his Sharingan, Ren said, omitting some details. But Ino still gasped at that information while Hinata's eyes suddenly gained an interested gleam. He is venerated as some sort of unbeatable ninja. But put him in a taijutsu spar against somebody who really focuses on taijutsu, and he would lose. His specialty is genjutsu, and he heavily relies on Sharingan. He is also a speed-based fighter who is passable at ninjutsu but does not use it very often. And from the knowledge available to me, I can tell you that he very much avoids any physical confrontation and prefers to use shuriken or kunao jutsu to keep his foe away from him. You would never catch him exchanging punches with his opponents. Because taijutsu is his weakness. Ino put the pieces of the puzzle together. If he is terminally ill, I doubt he can last long in a fight. Hinata added her own 50 cents. But he is known for ending his fights nearly instantly. Ino started, and Ren chuckled as he finished the sentence for her. Which is where his unbeatable reputation comes from. Good. Here. Have candy. He unsealed 2 candies from his wrist seal and gave them to his 2 very exasperated students. Remember, misdirection is a very important tool for ninjas. Always take the facts and think about them from several different angles. Otherwise, you'd end up like Madara, played by some weak-ass mommy boy marijuana wannabe who didn't even have much screen time in the anime. Ren thought to himself but didn't say that out loud. This is how you analyze S-rank ninjas. You take all the knowledge you have about them and then try to find their weak point. They are usually very skilled jonin, but they also have one thing they are known for. One overwhelmingly dangerous ability that sets them apart from the norm. Ren tilted his head up and looked at the sun with a small frown. But I think this is enough of an info dump for today. Sadly, they were not done yet. There was a lot to learn about S-rank ninjas. But at this point, Ren considered having his shadow clone write up a short book about it and just give it to the girls. He was surprised just how much information he came up with when he started considering these things. Ren stood up and created a shadow clone. Alright, Ino, he will give you the lift to Samui. Your yin clone is a very powerful thing. It could be your specialty. The way you use your Yamanaka jutsu in general could get you to that level. Adding to that, your swordsmanship and ninjutsu prowess, you have everything you would need to get to that rank, and I can't help you with that much. Admittedly, there was a bit of distaste in his tone as he said that. After seeing her wind dragon that would definitely get the S-rank ninjutsu classification, he wanted her to train her wind ninjutsu, but the girl got enamored with causing mental illusions via her yin clones. So, in her typical fashion, she did not listen and trained in what she wanted. Ren wasn't at all very butthurt. Not at all. Definitely no dash. Okay. He was pretty butthurt. Yeez. Technically, her yin clones did not have a counter. Yes, she did manage to touch him in a spar with that technique. Yes, he and Hinata could fight against it by now because they built a lot of resistance to it during their training with Ino, who loved to hit them with it out of nowhere at times. Yes, other ninjas would not have the same resistance. Ino, once she got quicker and better at wielding her sword, could very well become the next boogeyman like Itaki, who ends fights nearly instantly because nobody would know how to counter her or even understand what she was actually doing. But, ever since seeing her prowess with wind ninjutsu, Ren wanted her to fulfill his childish dreams of being some sort of wind overlord, throwing wind attacks left and right with glee. He wanted to live vicariously through her, damn it. Not that he would ever tell her that. It was a pretty embarrassing thing to admit. Ino quickly left with his clone, and Ren turned toward Hinata. At least he still had his sweet, obedient Hyuga girl. With an eager grin, he took out a scroll from his seal. "This is something I worked very hard for when I was a kid." He reverently gave the scroll to Hinata with shaky hands, almost tearing up. "I had many dreams of grandeur. This was one of them. This technique was supposed to be my triumph card." Hinata gulped, understanding that Ren was giving her something very precious to him. "Then, why dash? It requires several seconds to use. It can only be used as a long-range attack, and I don't have a way to aim it at such distances," Ren admitted with a self-deprecating sigh. 4 months. That's how long it took him to create the technique. It was a freaking grind, only to find out he can't use it in a real-life combat situation when he was finished. But, well, he was 11 back then, and he was never really meant for ninjutsu, anyway. It stung, but such was the reality. "How long range?" Hinata asked, looking intently at the scroll as she unruffled it. Hearing her, a grin returned to Ren's face, and it became positively smug. "Kilometers," he said, shocking the girl as she read the name of the technique. "Lightning release railgun." "Oh, yes. I am going to make a lightning overlord from you yet, my dear girl," Ren cackled in his mind. Chapter 98 ch 98. The railgun. Watch closely, Ren told Hinata as they stood on the beach. "I have my Byakugan active," Hinata told him, making him nod in acknowledgement. Pulling out a small coin from his pouch, Ren put it on his fingers as if he were going to flick it, and Hinata's heart started beating fast from excitement as she noticed the chakra inside of him get agitated. Lightning chakra concentrated in his hand almost instantly, and despite outwardly nothing changed, inwardly his chakra was doing several very complex things, molding and layering itself in various ways. Hinata watched, and watched, and watched, but as seconds slowly slipped by, her heart started to calm down until she was just awkwardly staring at Ren, who was still in the same coin-flipping stance. 1 minute later, when the chakra was still molding itself, a frown appeared on her lips as she looked at Ren with a raised eyebrow. She shuffled in discomfort, not sure how to say this without hurting her teacher's feelings, but, noticing her misgivings, Ren tried to smile, but it came out somewhat strained as beads of sweat rolled down his temples and forehead. "Give it time," he managed to say, sounding as if he was exerting a lot of effort. Hinata reluctantly nodded, her previous excitement completely gone by now, but she still sported a dismayed look. Over a minute of activation time was just brutal in a world where most fights do not even last that long. "Is this even going to be usable dash?" she started mumbling under her nose. Suddenly, a loud boom resounded through the surroundings, making Hinata's ears ring as she was blasted back and her body involuntarily somersault through the air until she, still with her mouth open, crashed headfirst into the sand. She, at least, managed to close her eyes in time, so her Byakugan got a clean look at the effect of Ren's technique despite her unfortunate circumstances. The second the technique activated, and he flicked the coin forward, the area around Ren was blasted by a strong concussive force. It was what sent her flying and created a small crater of sand around the spot where Ren stood, filling the air with a cloud of sand. The coin left Ren's hand, powered by his powerful lightning chakra, and flew forward at speeds that Hinata couldn't even track. The only thing she saw was the blue blur of a quickly dissipating beam it left behind itself. The momentum of the coin was so great that it caused the seawater underneath it to part as it flew by. The water was pushed to the sides, creating a watery valley that a moment later was once again filled up. And then, yet another booming sound resounded through the air, barely a second after the first one, as the superheated coin hit the water's surface in the distance and sent a Hokage monument-sized splash of water into the air so high, Hinata would not be surprised if some droplets reached the clouds. Normally, she would have been staring in awe and astonishment at such a destructive force, but with her mouth full of sand and her body bruised due to her rough landing, she only felt annoyed and about to vomit. She pushed herself out of the sand, ending on all fours as she tried to spit the sand that got into her mouth without gagging when a short but heavy downpour of seawater came from the sky, thoroughly drenching her and causing her knees and hands to sink into the now wet sand. "Oh, sorry, Hina. The user of the technique is protected from the force it generates, so I forgot to warn you." Ren, standing still in the same spot as before and protected from the momentary rain by a small wind technique, said. 10 seconds later, the downpour was over, and Hinata raised her head to look at Ren with a very displeased look. He was aloofly grinning at her in a very cheeky manner, and her right eye twitched as she realized he had done it on purpose, probably because she doubted his technique. "You planned this," she sullenly accused him with a glare as she stood up, looking sour. "I don't know what you are talking about." Ren's smile turned into a small smirk, and she rolled her eyes at him. "I can see that you are lying with my B-." But she didn't finish her sentence because the sea surface suddenly rose out of nowhere as a large wave hit the shore, washing over both Hinata and Ren. "Ah, I forgot that this could happen." Ren choked out as he swept his wet hair out of his eyes, glad it wasn't a proper tsunami. Hinata and Ren looked at each other, both splurting seawater, drenched like homeless rats and slouching in a fed-up manner. They suddenly fell into the wet sand and started to laugh. It was lunchtime, and Hinata and Ren teleported back to the village, deciding to go with the Ichiraku ramen for their lunch. They sat down and ordered their food alongside a portion of Ino's favorite ramen from the stand because she would be joining them shortly. Hinata released a pitiful whine as she put down the menu. "Ow, ow, ow." She teared up, her lips quivering as she looked really pitiable in that moment. Enough to make Ren snort as he shook his head at her antics when Tuke promised the girl a 20% discount out of pity after seeing her scorched and twitching fingers. "You are such a baby," Ren fondly whispered to the bashfully smiling Hinata after she thanked Tuki for his generosity. he knew she was playing it up. But it hurts, Hinata pouted, leaning on Ren's shoulder and burying her face into his upper arm. Sighing, Ren moved his arm and put it around her shoulders, pulling her into a half hug. Then heal yourself, he exasperatedly said. Scorched fingers and electric burn should not be even a speed bump with her proficiency with medical ninjutsu. I am out of chakra. She shamelessly protested with apprehension clear on her face, earning herself a flat look from Ren that she promptly ignored. Yes, her reserves might be nearly at their limit, but he could feel that her personal chakra storage seal was chock full of chakra. Ha! I spoil you too much. Ren mumbled under his nose as he took Hinata's hands into his hands by her palms, carefully avoiding touching her fingers, and applied a rudimentary numbing jutsu that lessened her pain and spread a soothing sensation over her fingers. The same numbing jutsu she could apply in her sleep on reflex by now. I like this. Hinata giggled and quickly pecked Ren on the lips. Thank you. I feel a lot better now. Ren's heart skipped a beat due to the delighted and happy foxy expression she had on her face at that moment. He leaned forward, intending to kiss her again, when Naruto suddenly entered the ramen stand. Noticing Ren, the boy quickly leaped at his back and gripped it like a koala. Ren, the graduation is soon. Teach me a jutsu. Please, please, please. Ren, the blonde teenager rambled as Ren took a deep breath and looked toward the heavens, inwardly complaining about Uzumaki cockblockers while Hinata silently laughed at his predicament. Chapter 99, ch 99, Lunch at Ichiraku. Get off. Ren shrugged Naruto off his shoulders with an exasperated irritation coloring his tone. No way I am teaching you anything, Naruto. Why not? Landing back on his feet, Naruto exclaimed with a wronged expression and big blue pleading puppy dog eyes that made Ren snort. That might work on Sarutobi, but tough luck. Ren recently decided to convert to cat person religion. His boosted inclination toward cats nullified 99% of Naruto's puppy dog eyes, and the last 1% only made Ren think he was so adorable he wanted to kick him. I already gave Karen a scroll on shadow clones. Ask her. She will teach you. Ren grumpily stated, subtly putting his hand on his knee to prevent his leg from involuntarily shooting forward because Naruto unwittingly positioned himself for a pretty nice nut kick straight to the balls. And Ren was oh so tempted to, but Ren inwardly shook his head. He doubted Karen, who was behind Naruto and giving him a very unimpressed look, would appreciate the possible malfunctions following said kick. Naruto's progeny was spared impromptu preventive execution for now. Stupid brat interrupting my Momo time with Hinata. Ren inwardly complained like a little kid and resisted the urge to huff and cross his arms on his chest with a scowl. Wait, really? I can learn that, Naruto exclaimed with a loud, excited whoop. That technique is kick-ass. Ren almost fell from his chair hearing that, and gave Karen a questioning look, but she just rolled her eyes with a fed-up, tired smile. The idiot refused it because he thought it was not for him since you gave the scroll to me and never gave him permission to learn it. She explained. Oi, Karen-chan. Naruto weakly protested, with slightly red cheeks due to embarrassment. The red-headed girl just fondly sighed and pecked him on the lips with a quiet, affectionate idiot before she went to sit behind the counter of the ramen stand while Naruto was left standing in his spot with a silly grin. Honestly, watching that, Ren could no longer find it in himself to stay mad at Naruto. It was hard to notice from behind a monitor, but the kid had this charisma about him. The talk no jutsu was frightening indeed. Ren briefly shuddered. Naruto quickly shook himself out of his funk and was about to go sit beside Karen when Sakugai and Sakugai entered the ramen stand, both wearing guy-approved green jumpsuits with their hair mercifully only hung into a bowl cut. I did that. Ren couldn't help but smile from ear to ear as he felt immense pride in what he accomplished in this life so far. Oh, hello, Naruto, Karen, Hinata, and Sakura awkwardly blinked at Ren while Suzuki scowled when he noticed Naruto. The other person. Sakura finished, and Ren just haphazardly waved at her in a greeting, far more preoccupied with Hinata's hand that found its way underneath his shirt. He idly wondered what happened to her hurt fingers. They seemed fine enough to touch him all over his torso. At least she didn't forget to layer a genjutsu over them to prevent people from seeing what she was doing. Sakura. Suzuki. Naruto happily exclaimed, you here to eat, too? The Ichirakus have the best ramen in the village. It's the food of the gods. Suzuki just took a deep breath and grumpily grunted, sure. Whatever. He walked around Naruto and sat in a free chair before taking a menu in his hands. Sakura's eyebrows scrunched, and she looked between Naruto and Suzuki for a moment before giving Naruto a small apologetic bow before she went to sit on Suzuki's left side, causing the boy to subconsciously shuffle a bit to the right side in discomfort. Ren was a bit surprised the girl was so civil toward Naruto. Guy's freaky ways were indeed mysterious. But Naruto did not like how Suzuki ignored him, so, soon enough, the blonde boy hopped with his feet onto the chair to Suzuki's left and crouched down, staring at the Uchiha boy from slightly above with narrowed eyes. What's your problem, bastard? Naruto frowned. Your youth is burning too brightly for my dark heart, loser. Suzuki muttered with a thick tone of sarcasm that Naruto completely missed and started to sheepishly rub the back of his head. Really? Naruto bashfully asked, taking the sentence as a compliment, and Suzuki's forehead hit the counter as he groaned. No, Suzuki shouted and abruptly turned to face Naruto. He calmed himself down almost instantly, a very commendable feat, in Ren's opinion. The boy had come far in the past few months. I am okay with enthusiasm. I train with Gai-sensei and Lee. But you are just too much, Naruto. The two started to bicker like children, and Ren glanced at Hinata with a questioning look. The girl just mildly smiled and started whispering Naruto really wants to beat Sasuke, so he challenges him all the time. Sasuke finds it annoying. She shrugged in a what can you do kind of way, ignoring the two bickering boys as if it were a common occurrence. Which, to her, Ren realized it probably was, considering she went to the ninja academy with the two. Why are you so fixated on M-? Sasuke loudly exclaimed, causing Ren to look back at the boys just in time to witness history. Naruto stumbled forward in his crouch. Sasuke's eyes started widening in horrified astonishment. Naruto fell forward, and he looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Their lips met. Everybody in the ramen stand froze and stared at the boys. Until Ren burst into laughter, and time as if resumed, and the boys forcefully separated, coughing and spitting on the ground with disgusted expressions. Karen looked pissed and Sakura just stared forward in horror, looking as if her soul left her body, muttering about how Sasuke's first kiss was stolen from her as its rightful owner. That's when Ino burst into the ramen stand, grinning like a loon. Her eyes mischievously landed on Naruto and Sasuke, who glared at each other, and her eyebrows rose. Hello, did I miss something good? She curiously asked. No, both boys vehemently rejected the notion. Nothing happened here. Sasuke gritted out. What the bastard said. Naruto quickly nodded his head up and down several times in an instant agreement, causing Ino to giggle as she sat on Ren's other side from Hinata. Ren turned toward her, only to have her tongue shoved into his mouth as he received an enthusiastic kiss from Ino. That was cruel. He sent her a mental message through his newest seal they worked on together. Oh, you don't need to be in one room with them for hours. Ino moaned into the kiss, they both deserve it and more. Besides, my yin clone just made Naruto stumble a bit. I wanted them to fall on each other. The kiss was unintentional but still funny. Ren could hear her mental giggle as they finally separated, both of them ignoring their onlookers. Public affection was a big no-no in this Japanese-esque culture, but neither of them really cared. The bimbo is right. The two of them can be really annoying. Of course, Hinata also had access to the telepathy seal. She was just polite enough not to interrupt their kiss with her thoughts. Ino and Ren looked at her, and she averted her gaze with a small blush on her cheeks, feeling a tad bad about badmouthing Sasuke and Naruto. Really? Ren asked, admittedly a bit curious. The relationship of Naruto and Sasuke in canon was always a bit dubious to him. Yeah, I sometimes pity Sakura. Ino complained, I've been in their heads. They have some sort of weird subconscious attraction going on between them. Dunno what it is. She shamelessly admitted without an ounce of guilt about her transgressions against privacy. Ren inwardly winced. Honestly? Canon Sasuke practically pumped Sarada into Sakura and then went on a village-sanctioned milk run for 12 plus years, not showing his face even once. That told Ren all he needed to know. No man who loves his wife would leave her for 12 years unless it was absolutely necessary. But that Sasuke had a space-time ninjutsu in his Rincharingen. What do you mean, he cannot show his mug once every year? Or once every 2 years? For a weekend at least? He can just freaking teleport back home. Was taking one-month vacation every 2 years too much for the broody boy wonder? Would the world end? Yeah, he clearly cared about Sakura and his daughter so much. Ren still believed that Sasuke was gay. There was simply nothing saying otherwise. He didn't love Sakura. He took pity on her. He probably realized he would need to restore his clan eventually anyway. And Sakura, the girl who was pining after him so much that she could forgive him even trying to ram a Chidori through her chest, was probably going to be as good a candidate to birth his children as any other woman. The second she had a kid, a part of him she could redirect her attention toward, he decided he desperately needed to go and buy cigarettes. It couldn't be helped that all the stores all the way to IWA were freshly out of stock, so he had to wander the world for over a decade. Such things happen. Well, Ren could be wrong, but the conspiracy theorist in him was whispering to him that he was right. After all, the canon Sasuke did not visit Sakura and Sarada even once, but he did have regular visits with Naruto. At that point, Ren really had no idea what else to think. It's not as if Sakura was ugly either. She was a very sexy girl in her own way and would probably have a line of simps long enough to reach Kumagakure if the internet existed here. I pity Karen, too, Hinata shyly admitted as their ramen arrived. Naruto loves her. I can see that. But, it just looks like she will have to share him with Sasuke for the rest of her life. Yeah, Ino interjected with a scoff and gave Ren a meaningful look before separating her chopsticks. You should have thrown her on the bed, grabbed her by her ankles, spread her legs, and screwed her senseless her first night in the village when she stayed at your apartment. I know that she wanted that to happen back then, too, but Ren only mentally huffed at her as he dug into his food. I distinctly remember you scowling and hissing at her like an angry cat. You say that now, but back then, you'd be pouting for at least half a year if that happened. Besides, you share, too. Don't throw stones from your glasshouse, girls. He chuckled. That's different. I share with Hinata, who is like a sister to me, not with another man. Ino sniffed before pausing. Wait. Could be kinda ho dash don't get any ideas. Ren dryly thought and gently stepped on her foot, banishing that idea into the pits of hell where it should remain. Konoha had enough gay couples. He didn't wish to be counted among Kakashi and Guy, Naruto and Sasuke, Sarutobi and Danzo, Jiraiya and Orochimaru, Hashirama and Madara, Hayashi and Fugaku, or Sakura and Sasuke. Suddenly, he felt his right side being poked and looked there, only to see Hinata giving him a precious, overly innocent look. "My fingers are hurt. Would you feed me, please?" Seeing it, Ino cooed beside Ren at how adorable it was, but Ren, despite wanting to kiss the Hyuga girl to find out if she tasted as sweet as she looked, only deadpanned at her. "So, that's why you don't want to heal yourself." Now it all made perfect sense. She had planned this. "Oh, I want the same," Ino excitedly exclaimed from Ren's other side. "Please," Hinata said with quivering lips, weaponizing her cuteness. "Please. Ino also said, but coyly as she put her hand on Ren's knee and leaned closer to him. "I will make it worth your while," she added through the telepathy seal with a seductive undertone. "That's cheating, bimbo," Hinata's dry thoughts protested, but Ino just mentally snorted. "Me kunoichi, bitch." Looking longingly at his ramen, Ren was caught between a rock and a hard place, but his expression suddenly turned resolute as he figured out a solution. "Shadow clone jutsu," he called out to divert the girls' attention as two clones popped into existence behind them and embraced them from behind. "Don't worry, lass." The clone behind Ino, one who appeared wearing a straw hat and chewing on a stalk of grass, spoke. "You shall be fed like a fat pig before butchering." Ino froze, and the atmosphere in the ramen stand instantly turned awkward. Even Sasuke and Naruto stopped arguing as they stared in disbelief at the carefree clone. Tuki, behind the counter, almost spilled the ramen he was filling into the bowl, and Ayam had to lean on the table in order not to fall on the ground as she tried to stifle her laughter. Ino's right eye started twitching, and the chopsticks in her hands creaked, but before she could say anything, the other clone who stood behind Hinata spoke. "This is clone abuse, and we all know how that turns out." He spoke as he shook his head while clicking his tongue. "Don't be foolish enough to imitate the Sith wannabe, young Padawans. Respect the clones. Praise the clones. Clones are good boys. Clones dash." Ren preemptively dismissed both clones before they could say something outrageous again. With a sigh, he gave an apologetic glance at the people who looked at him with their jaws on the floor. "Sorry, the technique malfunctioned. Let's try it again." Shrugging, Ren created another clone, cursing his luck. The chances of getting a faulty clone were like 1 in 100, and he had just pulled 2 at once? Said clone looked at Sakura and lifted his eyebrow at her. "Is that some kind of filthy Zeno that needs to be purged with holy flames?" "Why?" Sasuke couldn't help but reflexively ask in curiosity. And the new clone smirked. "Well, her forehead looks like an orangutan's as dash dot." He puffed back into smoke before he could finish, and Sakura was now giving Ren a very unhinged forced smile while Sasuke was smirking into his palm. "I swear, my clones are screwing with me." Ren mumbled to himself before carefully looking at Ino, and he quickly looked away. "Yeah, too soon." He donned an amiable smile, pretending nothing happened as he nodded at Hinata. "So, anyway, sure, Hina, I will happily feed you." That day, Ren's wallet wept Ryo as both Hinata and Ino had beaten Naruto and Karen in a ramen eating competition before Ino made Ren pay for all of their ramen. Only Tuki was left grinning at the end of the day. Chapter 100 Ch 100 Ren's counterattack. In a tall tower among numerous mountain peaks, stood a tall, muscular, brown-skinned man with blonde hair, impassively watching as a thunderstorm swept through his village, covering it in a blanket of darkness only interrupted by an occasional lightning strike hitting the rocky ground. "What's the response from Kiri?" he asked as he saw his secretary, Mabi, enter his office in the window's reflection. "It's not good, Lord Rakage." Mabi put some documents down on his table and slightly shook her head. "The Kiri was conquered by the rebels, and they celebrate their previous cage's death instead of trying to hunt everybody involved down. They are not going to go along with our suggestion." "Fools," a loudly muttered, glaring at the storm in front of him. "The Kirigakure's scum had as always no sense of loyalty. What about Oniki?" "Better." Mabi nodded, turning people into stone pissed IWA off. A grinned at that. It was yet another utterly stupid thing. IWA was always jealous of Konoha's wood release. Even now, when it no longer exists. Kyumo actually had several Senju breeding stocks ever since the first Ninja War, but nothing substantial ever came out of it. The project was a failure, and it was pretty much still sustaining itself on Hashirama's hype. But even A's father, 2 decades ago, already knew it was going nowhere and turned his attention to the Hyuga clan instead. IWA, however, hated Konoha deeply. They saw the ability to petrify somebody as something that should belong to them, just like the ability to make trees became Konoha's signature of sorts. They hated the fact that such an ability, which could represent their identity as IWA ninjas and boost their village's reputation, was used by a Konoha ninja. Heh, what a load of bullshit. A thought. But he knew Oniki could be petty little shit and he wasn't above using it against Konoha and the man who killed Darui. So, they will watch out for him. Good. I nodded in satisfaction. If it were the Konoha before, he would just send envoys and directly ask for Ren's head. There was a non-zero chance that Sarutobi would just comply back then, like he did during the Hyuga incident, which was hilarious. But ever since the academy reforms, Konoha seemed to regain its thunder, and with every year, they were just getting stronger. The shiftlingers seemed more motivated than ever, and Konoha's movements showed it. Sadly, the direct and arrogant route of demanding compensation was a no-go because of this. Oniki is not stupid, Lord Rakage. He understood what we were trying to do by calling him that nickname. Mabi cautioned, subtly pointing out the possible diplomatic fallout from that decision. But A was resolute. It does not matter. He grunted, Darui is dead. We can't let that slide. And besides, even if Oniki understood our intentions, what of it? A chuckled. He has to do something. His elite ninjas would be dissatisfied otherwise. And while I could not send a multitude of assassins to Konoha in order to claim Darui's killer's head like he wanted to do, he could ensure the boy would be hunted all over the world outside of Konoha for the rest of his life. I glanced at Mabi, who was waiting for further instructions. Notify me the second this Ren enters our country. I will hunt him down myself. God help the boy if he gets the bright idea to enter the land of lightning ever again. Nobody would be able to save him then. I dearly hoped the boy would be that stupid. It was the day when Hinata and Ino would graduate from the academy, and Ren was in the capital of the land of lightning, leisurely picking up a graduation gift for Ino. They had some of the best swordsmiths in this country. Noticing the time, he cursed under his breath. He was a bit late for a meeting. Quickly teleporting to the capital of the land of fire, he walked out of his house, on his way to meet Ren, the merchant, who was doing business with him. Entering the man's company under Henge, Ren was quickly led to his office, where Ren, the merchant, greeted him, and soon enough, the two were seated behind a table. Ren didn't have much time, so he didn't bother with pleasantries and got instantly to the point. I heard the Makoa Trading Company is causing you trouble, my friend. Ren, the merchant, frowned. Yes? It is nothing important and should not affect our busy dash. He started to ramble, only for Ren to interject. You misunderstand, he said with a small smile and unsealed a few documents before putting them on the table. I am sure you have some friends in high places who are interested in dishing out a bit of justice. He gestured toward the documents. Ren, the merchant, lifted his eyebrow at him. Do you have a problem with them, too? He asked as he took the documents into his hands and started reading. But Ren only non-committally shrugged. No, he didn't care about them. Human trafficking, Ren, the merchant, exclaimed in bewilderment. Slavery was illegal in the land of fire. If the documents were real, then this could destroy the Makoa Trading Company. The person Ren had problems with was Danzo, who had way too many friends. And since killing the man was not an option because of his future plans, Ren decided to work on curbing his influence outside of Konoha for the time being. It just so happened that the path of least resistance for removing the Makoa Trading Company, which dealt regularly with Danzo and his route under the table, was to simply hand over the evidence he discovered during his investigations to Ren, the merchant. The man also had trouble with them. Ren didn't think these documents would vanish or that the man would give them to a corrupt official. The merchant was far too competent for that, and he had his own connections. Not to mention, this was the kind of thing that could make or break careers for high officials. They would jump at it like hungry vultures smelling blood once they verified the evidence. As you can see, your opponents are very naughty. Ren chuckled. I just came to give you a way to deal with them. Now, if you excuse me. With that, Ren stood and used Henge to disguise himself again before he body flickered away, leaving through the window. It was a tad bit rude of him, but Ren, the merchant, would surely forgive him, no? After all, he did just solve a big headache for the man. But Ren was not done for today. Channeling his transportation seal, Ren teleported to a dark room where his clone was sitting on the ground, using the detection seal for scouting. How is it going? Ren asked, crouching next to the clone. The rebellion is starting in an hour or so, the clone said, and then opened his eyes, a small smirk appearing on his lips as the original Ren sighed. He felt a bit bad for all the normal people who would die because of his actions. But at the same time, the Lord of Kurowa Prefecture in the Land of Fire was connected to the Makoa Trading Company and Danzo. He was very discreet about it, but he did have people kidnapped and was selling them to the Land of Earth, where slavery was not only legal but was actually booming right now. Giving that intel to the peasants and riling them up enough for them to rebel was not hard. Not after quite a few of them were given proof that their mothers, sisters, daughters, brothers, fathers, and whatnot else were sold either to mines or brothels and everything in between all over the Land of Earth. The hard part was ensuring that their little rebellion would not be squashed before it could even start. Then we should move, too, Ren said, and the clone nodded before they disappeared from the room. Infiltrating the castle of the lord who presided over this prefecture, Ren's clone went to check on the water supply he had poisoned this morning. He was then going to support the rebels from the shadows while staying hidden. No way were peasants winning against trained samurai without the samurai involuntarily crapping all over themselves in their armor and being barely able to stand due to sudden bout of exhaustion. Ren, on the other hand, entered the castle's basement. He ignored the cages full of people and quickly walked toward the door on the other side of the room. Entering, he saw a brown-haired man sitting behind a table, doing some paperwork. Hearing the door open, the man raised his head, only for a kunao to almost nail him to the forehead, but he was quick enough to throw himself to the left, dodging the attack. The man scrambled to grab his tanto from the table, and a second later, he was ready for the fight, only for his sight to blur as he fell to his knees, gasping for air with wide eyes full of panic. He started choking and grabbed at his neck in disbelief when the second kunao Ren threw ended his life. Witnessing it, Ren wryly shook his head. The man was clearly a Haichinin, maybe even a Jonin, yet he died so easily. Seriously, he should probably stop giving Ino ideas. He had one of her yin clones in his mind. The clone created another yin clone in the mind of his opponent right the moment he was distracted because of Ren's first kunao. The new yin clone then gave the man a mental illusion of being poisoned with a specific poison Ren didn't recognize, creating a perfect opportunity for Ren to end the fight. His blonde girl was becoming quite terrifying with her Yamanaka techniques. Stepping over the dead body of the man who was most likely a root ninja, Ren looked at all the documents on the table and sighed. Well, now it was time for the troublesome part. Framing Konoha of working with the slavery ring. Loved this story? Hit subscribe and join Infinite Novel to be the first to catch new chapters.